Nobody ever warns you about the moment a familiar face becomes a stranger, when the eyes that once held entire chapters of your childhood suddenly look through you as if searching for a name that used to matter. And that's exactly what happened the morning I stepped into my father's nursing home room, and he asked me, with heartbreaking politeness, "Young man, can I help you?" I stood there, frozen, holding the cup of warm tea I'd brought for him, English breakfast, 2 sugars, the way he'd always liked it, and for a second, the entire world seemed to fold inward, shrinking into a quiet ache that wrapped around my ribs. The nurse gave me a sympathetic look, the kind reserved for people who are about to break, but are still pretending they're made of steel. "It's a confusing day for him," she whispered. "Just talk to him. Sometimes the memories come back in pieces." But I knew better. Alzheimer's doesn't give back what it takes. Not fully, not neatly, not kindly. I sat down beside him, trying to steady my breath, and he watched me with that gentle uncertainty of someone trying to place a face they feel they should recognize. "You look familiar," he said finally, tilting his head. "Are you from my old neighborhood?" I swallowed the lump forming in my throat and forced a smile. "Something like that," I whispered, because I didn't have the strength yet to say, "I'm your son." And maybe, just maybe, today wasn't the day to force him into a truth his mind couldn't hold. He nodded slowly, as if satisfied with that answer, then turned his gaze to the window. Outside, the November wind rattled the branches of the old maple tree, scattering burnt orange leaves like tiny memories drifting away from a place that no longer needed them. He smiled at the sight. "Looks like autumn's trying to say goodbye again," he murmured softly. "It never leaves quietly." For a few minutes, neither of us spoke. The clock on the wall ticked with a steady stubbornness, marking time in a room where time had stopped making any logical sense. Then he asked, "Do you know anything about fishing?" That question pulled a small, bittersweet smile from me. My father had taken me fishing every summer until I was 13. It was one of the few traditions he never failed at before forgetting became the norm. "Yeah," I said quietly, "I know a little." He brightened, but only for a moment. "My son, he used to fish with me," he said, the words drifting out like a fragile leaf in the wind. "He was a good kid, funny, quiet, too soft-hearted for his own good." His eyes softened, warming with a distant tenderness. "I miss him, you know." My breath caught. "I'm right here," I wanted to say. "I never went anywhere." But before I could speak, he gave a small laugh. "Of course, he's still alive somewhere," he murmured. "But the boy I remember, that one's from another lifetime." He tapped his chest lightly, as if knocking on a door. "Memory's a thief, kid. It steals the edges first, then works its way into the parts that matter." There was something different about his voice, more fragile, like a man waking from a long dream but still half trapped inside it. Then he looked at his hands, studying them as though they belonged to someone else. "Funny thing is," he whispered, "I don't remember much anymore, but there's one thing I can never forget." He paused, eyes glistening with a strange mixture of clarity and confusion. A moment, he looked at me again, and for a second, just a second, I saw recognition spark in his eyes like a match trying desperately to stay lit. A moment that keeps me alive. My heart thudded. "What moment?" I asked softly. He blinked, breathing in deeply, as though pulling the memory from a faraway place. "It was a Wednesday, late afternoon, rainy. I was walking home from work." His voice wavered slightly, and I saw a little boy sitting on the curb with a scraped knee, crying like his whole world had fallen apart. His brows furrowed. I knelt down, handed him a handkerchief, and he looked up at me with the saddest eyes I'd ever seen. His voice cracked. He said, "Daddy, you came." My breath left my body. He didn't remember my face. He didn't remember my name, but he remembered that dot, that Wednesday, that rain, that small, trembling version of me waiting for him. The one moment in a childhood full of disappointments when he actually showed up. And suddenly, the tears I'd been holding back all morning burned at the edges of my vision. "That boy," I whispered, "he loved you a lot." He smiled faintly. "I loved him too," he murmured. "Still do, wherever he is." And even though he didn't realize it, his hand reached out instinctively, resting on mine like muscle memory of a love his mind could no longer fully carry. Just then, the door opened behind us. A nurse poked her head in. "Mr. Hay, your therapy session in 10 minutes. My father nodded politely, though his eyes had already drifted back to the window. After she left, he whispered, "They're kind here, but I hate being reminded of what I'm forgetting." I took a deep breath. Can I come again tomorrow?" He looked at me with a soft, uncertain smile. Of course, I enjoy your company. And even though he didn't know why, didn't know who I was, the sincerity in his voice made something inside me unravel. Before I left, he asked, "Hey, do you know what day it is?" I hesitated. "Wednesday." His eyes widened with a flash of recognition so sharp it almost hurt. "Wednesday," he repeated. "That was the day you came." I finished for him. He nodded slowly, a tear escaping the corner of his eye. "I'm glad I didn't forget that." I walked out into the cold hallway with a heart heavy enough to drag behind me. The walls were lined with framed nature, prints mountains, forests, oceans, but none of them felt alive compared to the man sitting in that dimly lit room, trying to stitch together the pieces of a life slipping away from him. On my way out, the nurse approached me. "Rough day," I nodded. She touched my arm gently. "He has good days too. Sometimes something triggers a memory, a smell, a voice, a sound. Don't lose hope." I thought about that as I stepped outside, the chilly air biting at my cheeks. If one memory of the Wednesday he didn't fail, me could survive the storm of his unraveling mind. Maybe there was more hiding somewhere in the fog. Maybe I wasn't entirely gone to him. Maybe love was stronger than the disease that tried to erase it. But I didn't expect what happened the next day. I didn't expect the truth waiting for me behind that door. I didn't expect him to remember something he had no right remembering, something I had forgotten, something that would change everything I thought I knew about him, and about myself. The next morning, when I walked into my father's room expecting the same soft confusion in his eyes, I instead found him sitting upright, almost anxious, as if he had been waiting for me. And when he looked up, something in his gaze made my stomach tighten, because for the first time in months, there was intention behind it, a searching clarity that felt both terrifying and fragile, like watching a candle suddenly flare brighter in a dark room, and praying the wick doesn't burn out too fast. He squinted at me, his fingers drumming softly on the blanket. "You came back," he said. And the way he said it, like he'd been holding on to those words all morning, struck something deep inside my chest. I nodded carefully, unsure how long this moment of sharpness would last. "Of course I came back," I said softly. "I told you I would." He motioned toward the chair beside him. "Sit," he whispered. His voice trembled not from confusion this time, but from urgency, like he had something that needed to be said before the fog closed around him again. I sat down slowly, my pulse rising in my throat. "Is everything okay?" I asked. He looked down at his hands, turning them over as if searching for answers in the lines of his palms. "There's something I need to tell you," he murmured. "Something I should have said a long time ago." A knot formed in my chest. "Take your time," I said gently. But inside I was bracing myself, because when someone with Alzheimer's says they remember something, it can mean anything or nothing. Yet the weight in his voice told me this was different. He inhaled shakily. I know who you are." For a moment, I forgot how to breathe. His eyes lifted slowly to meet mine, and there was no mistaking it. This time the recognition was real, flickering but fierce, like a memory clawing its way to the surface. "You're my son," he whispered, and the words nearly knocked the air from my lungs. "My boy." I swallowed hard, afraid to move, afraid that acknowledging it too loudly would shatter the fragile moment. "Yes," I whispered, "I'm your son." He closed his eyes tightly, and a tear slid down his cheek. "I'm sorry," he choked out. "I'm so sorry." My heart lurched. "Dad, no," he said firmly, opening his eyes again. "Let me finish before I lose it." He tapped his temple. "The memories, they come and go. Mostly go. But last night," he paused, breathing unevenly. "Last night, I had a dream. Or maybe it wasn't a dream. Maybe it was something buried deep, something I didn't want to face, but it came back." I leaned in carefully. "What came back?" He looked past me, as if staring into some distant past only he could see. "You were little," he whispered. 6, maybe 7. It was winter. You were sitting on the stairs in your pajamas, waiting for me. I had promised to take you to see the Christmas lights that night." His face tightened with pain. "But I didn't come home on time. I never came home on time. Your mother put you to bed, and you cried yourself to sleep." A sharp ache pressed into my ribs. I didn't remember that. Not exactly, but something about it felt familiar, like a bruise pressed years later. He continued, his voice breaking. "I saw myself walking in the door hours too late. Drunk. I remember stepping on one of your toy cars and cursing under my breath. Your mother was furious. She said, 'He waited for you for hours. He sat on the stairs until he fell asleep sitting up. He wiped a tear with a shaking hand, and I laughed it off. I laughed. His voice cracked. God, what kind of father laughs at that? I reached for his arm. Dad, you don't have to. Yes, I do, he said, gripping my hand with surprising strength. You deserve the truth. All of it. Before I forget again. His breathing grew heavier, and he swallowed hard, battling emotion with every word. I wasn't there for you. I wasn't the man you needed. I wasn't the man I wanted to be. He paused, chest rising and falling rapidly. But that moment you remembered the Wednesday I came for you. That wasn't the only time I loved you. It was just the only time I didn't fail. The room grew unbearably quiet. Dad, I whispered. I held on to that memory, he said. It's the only one this disease can't take. Not because it was perfect, but because it was the one time I felt like a real father. His eyes glistened. And maybe it's the one moment you still needed me. I felt something inside me crack open slowly, painfully. I needed you more than you think, I said softly. But I always knew you tried. He shook his head. Trying isn't enough. Not when you're raising a child. Maybe not, I whispered. But love is. He stared at me for a long moment. The recognition still burning but flickering now, trembling, like a flame fighting against the wind. Then he whispered, there's more. My breath hitched. I remember something else, he said slowly. Something I didn't think I'd ever tell you. He looked down at his trembling hands. The day your mother left, she didn't leave because of you. She left because of me. I told you once that she didn't love us anymore, that she chose a new life. His jaw tightened in shame. I lied. My heart stuttered. Dad, what do you mean? He took a long, shaking breath. Your mother was hurting. She wanted me to get help. She begged me to stop drinking, to be present, to be a father. But I couldn't give her what she needed, and she knew staying would break us all. He looked up, tears streaming. So I told you it was her fault, because I was too much of a coward to admit it was mine. My chest constricted. Years, decades of resentment, confusion, and unanswered questions collapsed into a single, painful truth. I'm sorry, he whispered again. I'm so, and I know I don't deserve forgiveness, but I want you to have the real story before it all disappears. I felt my own tears fall silently. Dad, I didn't know. You weren't meant to, he said. I wanted to protect you from the worst of me. Instead, I ended up protecting myself. A heavy silence settled over the room. Then he said something that felt like a punch to the heart. But the worst part, he whispered, is that you grew up thinking you were the reason she left. And I let you think that. My vision blurred. Dad, I stole a lifetime of peace from you, he said, voice breaking. And now the disease is stealing my chance to fix it. I shook my head fiercely. No, you're here now. For how long? He asked softly. A minute? An hour? He touched the side of his head. This clarity, it won't last. Then tell me everything you can, I whispered. Right now. He nodded shakily. There's one more thing. One memory I've held on to all these years. I leaned in. That Wednesday, he whispered, when you were crying on the curb. Do you know why I came? I nodded. Because you saw me. No, he said softly. Because I chose you. I froze. I walked out of the bar that afternoon, he continued, and for the first time in my life, I had an urge, just a small one, to be better, to show up. And when I saw you sitting there, I knew I couldn't break that moment. Not again, not that time. His lips trembled. It was the first day I ever chose to be your father, and the last day I did it right. My heart shattered. Dad, that moment saved me, I whispered. His breath hitched. It saved me, too. We sat there for a long time, holding on to a memory that somehow belonged to both of us, something the disease couldn't erase, something time hadn't destroyed, something fragile but unbreakable. But then, as suddenly as it came, the clarity began slipping. His eyes drifted. His expression softened into confusion. And then he whispered, I'm sorry. Do I know you? My heart stopped. But instead of crying, I smiled gently, painfully, lovingly. It's okay, I whispered. I know you. He looked relieved. Good, he said softly. I like having you here. I squeezed his hand. I'll be here tomorrow too. He nodded, turning his gaze back to the window, back to the drifting autumn leaves. Wednesday, he murmured. Feels like a Wednesday. It does, I whispered. And you didn't forget that. And that of all things was enough. If this story touched you, even for a moment, if it reminded you of someone you miss, someone you love, or a memory you still carry gently in your heart, I want to thank you for staying with me until the end. Stories like this aren't just words, they're reminders of how love survives, even when memory doesn't, and how sometimes the smallest moments are the ones that stay. I would truly love to hear your thoughts in the comments. Maybe you've lived something similar, or maybe this story awakened an old memory of your own. Your voice matters here. If the story meant something to you, please take a moment to tap the like button. It helps more than you know. And if you'd like to join me for more emotional, life-changing stories like this one, I'd be grateful if you subscribed. Thank you for watching, truly.